The sound of something being dragged across the floor upstairs when you know for a fact no one else is home. You hear it plain as day, a heavy, rhythmic scraping. Closer. Then a faint, guttural whisper, right above your head, in the ceiling. You tell yourself it's the house settling, old pipes, the wind. But what if it's not? What if it's something else entirely? Tonight, we're going to talk about the difference between a simply noisy house and something far more sinister. By the end of this, you'll understand the subtle, terrifying shift and why some sounds just aren't normal. This isn't just a story. This is a warning. A late-night whisper about how quickly comfort can sour into creeping dread. We'll trace the turning point, the moment denial became impossible, and the true cost of ignoring what was right in front of them. You'll hear about the worst moment, the chilling silence that followed, and what the family was left with. Consider this your guide, should your own quiet night ever turn less quiet. It started subtly, as these things always do, with the Andersons, in their beautiful old Victorian on Willow Creek, bought cheap because it was a fixer-upper. That's what they told themselves. Late summer, just as the nights were drawing in. Mark and Sarah, with their 2 teenage kids, Liam and Chloe. A typical family, excited about their new beginning. The house was charming, full of character, and certainly full of sounds. Creaks, groans, the whistle of wind through imperfectly sealed windows. An old house breathing. That's what they'd say when a floorboard popped overhead or a draft rattled a closed door. Nothing unusual at first. But then the pattern began to emerge. It was always in the dead of night, around 3 a.m. give or take. Not always the same sound. Sometimes a soft tap. Sometimes a click from the kitchen, like a cupboard closing itself. They'd brush it off. Must be the cat, even though the cat was usually asleep at the foot of their bed. Then came the dragging, a distinct, heavy scrape. Mark first heard it from his study. He'd paused his late-night work, headphones off, listening to the sound move from the attic hatch, across the landing, and stop, directly above his head. He went upstairs, flicked on every light. Nothing. The attic door was sealed. Everything was in place. He even checked on the kids, deep asleep. He blamed the pipes, the old house settling, maybe even his imagination. But the sound was so clear. The next week, it was Chloe's turn. Her bedside lamp, unplugged and thrown onto the floor while she was sleeping. She woke to the crash, heart pounding. Her parents, half asleep, helped her plug it back in, reassuring her it must have just fallen. It was on the nightstand, perfectly steady, she insisted, her voice small. But what could have possibly knocked it off? Here's what we know so far. Sounds, small displacements, always in the dark hours. The escalating pattern is one of the first things true investigators look for. A noisy house has consistent, explainable sounds. A poltergeist? It adapts. It learns. It escalates. The night everything changed, it was raining. A torrential downpour. Mark was in bed, drifting off, when he heard it again. That dragging sound. Only this time it wasn't upstairs. It was downstairs. He sat up, his wife Sarah beside him. She was awake too, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. This wasn't a creak. This was deliberate. A heavy scraping sound moving across the kitchen floor. Mark got up, grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the bed. His heart hammered. He moved slowly, methodically down the stairs, every step a creak. The kitchen light was off, total darkness. He pushed the door open. The dragging stopped. The air in the room was colder than it should have been. Mark fumbled for the light switch. When the fluorescence flickered on, he saw it. Every single chair in the kitchen, 4 of them, had been pulled from the table. They were neatly stacked, one on top of the other, in the exact center of the room. The top chair was upside down, and balanced precariously on its legs was a single ceramic coffee mug. It was an impossible arrangement. No human could have done it that quietly, that perfectly, and certainly not in the mere seconds it took Mark to get downstairs. He felt a sudden, profound dread. This wasn't a settling house. This wasn't the wind. This was intentional. He didn't touch it. He just stood there, the bat heavy in his hand, staring at that impossible stack. What would you have done? Would you have tried to debunk it, or would you have finally admitted what you were seeing? They left the next morning. Mark called a paranormal investigator, someone he knew through a friend of a friend. He walked through the house, listened to the story, saw the untouched stack of chairs. The investigator explained, a noisy house has sounds that don't change, aren't directed, and usually have a logical explanation, even if you don't immediately find it. Plumbing, drafts, structural issues. But a poltergeist, it targets, it learns, it performs. The dragging, the moving objects, the specific time, the escalation from subtle noises to impossible feats, and critically, the directed aggression, the lamp thrown from Chloe's nightstand, the chairs stacked in the kitchen. The whisper Mark heard right above his head the night he heard the dragging from the attic, that was the signature, a low, guttural sound, often described as a whisper or a growl, the kind of sound that chills you to your bones because it shouldn't exist. They sold the house. Cheap. They didn't lie, exactly. They just didn't elaborate on why it was a fixer-upper. So, the next time you hear a strange sound in the dead of night, ask yourself, is it just the house settling, or is something else trying to tell you it's there? Is it a whisper, or is it a warning? What was the most unsettling sound you've ever heard in your own home? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories about the things that go bump in the night, make sure you subscribe.